Okay, I've got my standing ovation. Can I quit now? This is good. Isn't it just remarkable? At a time when we're well into the process of picking the next president of the United States, and we haven't made our mind up yet, well, clearly there's still a little controversy. There's still a level of excitement here. And one of the reasons there's excitement here is that I got to sit with Kevin McCarthy. Now, I knew Kevin as a staffer, as an assemblyman, as a leader of the loyal but small minority. I got to see him take money from people with the absolute conviction that they would have a majority, and absolutely no chance. But can you imagine what it was like when Kevin came to join us and said, we're going to raise just a blank pot of money, we're going to take the majority, and then he comes up and he really is the author of the Young Guns. Now, unlike most people, he didn't dye his hair to fit the part. He just smiled big and pretended he was young. And hung around with Paul Ryan so that he'd be with a young guy. But with Kevin's help, and Paul Ryan's help, and Eric Cantor's help, and others, we took the majority. And the introduction I got from Tom would never have happened without your help, without Kevin's hard work, without the Young Guns program, without the money, without everything it took to take the majority, which ultimately is the reason I get to write a subpoena, or more specifically, a lot of them. Now, I'm just going to tell you a little story about how things are in Washington, because I'm here tonight as somebody who says, you know, Sharon, you did a great job of making the case, not only for the fact that you're better skilled on my investigations than some of my investigators, but you made the case for the RNC, and there's this other group called the NRCC. I'm going to make the case there too, and I'm going to make the case for the Senate, and I'll do it this way. We're going to elect the next president of the United States. I happen to have endorsed Mitt Romney. I suggest you all do the same thing. Kevin, this is when the standing ovation would work. But no matter who our nominee is, with the help of the RNC, we'll raise the money, and in fact, we will win that election. But let me tell you a difference that's going to happen if we retain the majority and we pick up the Senate. Now, Tom talked about he said I was going to talk fast and furious, but actually I'm enjoying talking a little slower than usual. The fact is, I got fast and furious almost by accident. Most of you know who Senator Charles Grassley is. Chuck sent a letter because Brian Terry had been gunned down, and a whistleblower had said that it was with Fast and Furious weapons, and he wanted to know about Fast and Furious. And he didn't know it was 2,000 weapons at the time, so he sends a letter of inquiry, and he gets back a response. You're not a chairman. You don't have subpoena power. Go see Patrick Leahy. What a surprise. Chairman Patrick Leahy had no interest whatsoever in Fast and Furious. So Chuck calls over to me, says, Darrell, you've got subpoena power, don't you? Yeah. Well, would you use it to, go after Fast and Furious and just get me answers? I said, sure. I said, how about if I send a letter first? Now, I've sent 800 letters, just so you understand. 500 of them I got answers from. There's about 200 left. And I've had to issue more than half of the 22 subpoenas just to the Attorney General and various individuals related to Fast and Furious. They have ruthlessly tried to prevent any kind of legitimate oversight, even as a scandal continued to grow from denial that they ever let guns walk, to today we have in absolute evidence admitted, even by the Attorney General, that they gave us a false letter on February 4th, and on that same day, Lanny Brewer, the number 3, the right hand of Eric Holder, was in Mexico trying to convince the Mexican government to let them do a different and expanded form of gun walking. And they used the word gun walking on the same day they gave Congress a false letter. The difference of majority and oversight in our country is everything. This administration for 2 years ignored the minorities, so much so that they established what, and Kevin's heard this before, so it's a great applause and laugh and just joke line, but it's serious as all get up. Every time they don't want to do something, they say we have a long established policy of not doing it. And I'm going, but you've only been here 2 years and Nancy Pelosi was running it, and they did no oversight. And the answer is we have a long established policy of not doing it. Well, with your help, we're going to establish a very different policy. One, that we have a president who will respect the Constitution, not try to convert it to some excerpt of the South African Constitution. One that will not try to expand the NLRB and other agencies in order to serve union agenda. And lastly, one who will never need a subpoena, because in fact, when any party asks the president and his cabinet for legitimate information related to the oversight that we are constitutionally bound to do, we'll get answers. That's the thing that Sharon, when she talked about all those candidates, the 4 or the 1 winner and 3 who get over it in about 24 hours, that's the one thing that unites all 4 of our remaining candidates. These are people who strongly believe in the Constitution. These are people who want to lead in a way that is constitutional. Now, Ron Paul will tell you he's the only one that understands it completely, and he may perhaps be right. But they all, in fact, are thoroughly dedicated to do the kind of governing that will allow our economy and our entrepreneurs, people right up here in the Bay Area and throughout this country, to grow our economy the right way. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be easy. It's going to be hard. And we're going to come to you and others again and again, whether it's for grassroots support or, in fact, it's for money. Please be generous with both. When Sharon comes and tells you about the great need at the RNC, please give 1/3 to 1/2 of your money to her. When Kevin comes and says he needs money for the NRCC, please give it in my name. But hand it to Kevin. In all seriousness, I was asked to come here, and as most of you know, I come to every convention almost without fail. And I come here because you're what matters. The true believers, the people that will come year after year and say, I know we're deep in the minority in California. I know that we only have 19 members of the Republican Party, even in Washington. But we believe enough that we invite candidates here, we give them money, we support them, we call our friends, we do the things we can because we believe America is better than the governance we have here in California. And that's why I come here to thank all of you. Now, I also come here because if I sit next to Kevin, I can lobby him for so much. So it is an abbreviated program tonight. I'm going to close with just one thing. I mentioned the Constitution. Right now, there are attacks on the Constitution, and some of them are subtle, and some are less subtle. I'm just going to relate one thing to you. Last week, there was a hearing that was spun, and it was terribly spun. We all saw it. I won't call it my greatest success to get a point across on behalf of the American people. But I want to share with you the words of the rabbi who came to our committee. He was there with, and it sounds like one of those jokes you heard growing up, but there was a priest, there was a minister, there was a rabbi. Bishop Laurie, who was the priest, told us sort of a story about there but for the benevolence of our government. If we throw away the First Amendment, the Jewish rabbi on the other end could be forced to supply ham sandwiches at temple. And if he said, I can't supply ham sandwiches, the president could in fact say, well, I'll make an accommodation. You just have to let a vendor come in, you pay him, and he will dispense the ham sandwiches for free. That's the accommodation we're dealing with right now in Obamacare. Later, the rabbi spoke, and the rabbi didn't have any ham sandwich stories at all. But what he did was he said, you know, my faith does not have a problem with abortion per se. We don't have a problem with contraceptions. We have a problem with an administration who will throw away 230 years since, and he quoted a letter from George Washington to a rabbi during our founding, 230 plus years of an absolute bar on government ordering religions to do anything. So a man of great faith came and said, it's not against my faith, but I'm here united with people because if they order them, as Jews, we understand that we are the smallest minority. We are, in fact, always thankful that in this country we have religious freedom that we've had since the day of our founding, since that letter exchange between George Washington and the rabbi. So it was meaningful for me, and I'll never forget it, because ultimately Obamacare triggered the kind of hubris that this administration asserted, thinking that they could tell people of faith in their churches, in their schools, and in their hospitals what to do. You won't hear that in the mainstream press. You heard it here tonight, because the one thing I know about my party is we are a party of religious tolerance and religious enjoyment, religious fulfillment, religious acceptance, because we're the party in which religious people knew that men could not live in slavery in our country any longer. We are the party that understood that people of faith knew that slavery was wrong, and we changed it. We were formed not based on one religion, but on the power of people of faith and the understanding that you empower faith, you don't assert power over faith. Thank you.